Why do A students work for C students, and why do B students work for the government? This is Question and Analysis. My name is Edward Kinyua, and today we are going to do a bit of a deep dive on a concept that was introduced by Kiyosaki, I think in the early 1990s. And the concept is simple, that A students work so hard, get to a certain point whereby they have nothing programmed inside them but employment. B students have spent their whole life wanting to become A students and therefore choose the safer route in life, therefore working for the government. And C students, being given no other option, usually find a way out, usually go and do the hard work. The work that the B student, the A student wouldn't actually do. And through a weird compound interest, end up being on top. And this causes them to employ the A students, the B students, and everyone else in the chain. Now, let's start with some definitions. A student. A student is probably a student that you know. This is a student that was good at everything. Math, English, languages, sciences. They actually were able to balance out and reach to a point whereby they could be known as experts in some things. They were ahead of their time. This was a student that was reading ahead. This is a student that everything came easy to. And what we see is that when they finish education, let's say secondary or are looking out to go into university, they have something that I like to call the fallacy of options. And the fallacy of options is something that can lie to a student, especially one that is not guided correctly, because you find that this student actually gets an A or an A minus in everything. So they're good in math, A in math, A in languages, A in sciences, and all of a sudden their childhood dream of becoming a doctor is clouded by so many options. This is the fallacy of options. And this student becomes a bit confused, starts listening to everyone give them advice, starts second guessing what they should do. Majority of the time they end up doing the course that they did not want to do. And 5 years later, they are primed. They come out of university with their papers and they say, 5 years doing an engineering course, let me now put this into work. And there's a reality that they meet when they get to the ground. The reality is that education system doesn't really match world system. That the world does not really reward the most educated, but especially the third world countries in Africa. You're rewarded for being brave. You're rewarded for thinking differently. You are rewarded for all these other things that are not really education based. Now, let's define a B student. A B student, this is a student that wanted nothing more than to become the A student. They did their best. They tried A, B, C, D, but they just couldn't get there. Psychologically speaking, this is a student that admired and did everything right and keeps wondering, why can't I just get there? They spent more money on tuition when it came to summertime, when everyone else was going on a trip and doing this. The B student is a student that did their time to cram, understand, and go the extra mile, but just didn't get there. They got into universities, but they never really got to do the A1 courses. So they went and did a bit of business, law, and they always felt second to the A student. And what we see with the B student is that their career path normally ends up being governmental institutions. Why? Because they are looking for validation that they never really got from their parents, because they were always just not good enough, or they felt that way. Validation that they never got from their teachers, the institutions. And these are students that choose the government role because it's safe. These are students that choose the government ladder because it's guaranteed. Work for a number of years, get this promotion. We do this, get this. The C student / the D student. This is a student that nothing came easy to. Right? For some reason, they just couldn't concentrate. It's not that they did not try. They actually tried. But they always felt like nothing was just getting in. And the parents tried to push. But up to a certain point, someone told them that maybe education is not for you. So while everyone was finishing secondary school and thinking of higher education, that was not an option to them. So while the A student had the fallacy of option, the B student had some options, the C and D student had no option. So what do they choose? They do not have what I call choice overload. So this is a student that did not have the opportunity to go to university. That was not on the card. So this student starts getting real world experience, goes and starts working in their mom's grocery shop, goes and starts following their dad in the mechanic shop, goes and starts looking for work. Work not in the sense of trying to make money, but work in the sense of the parent tells them, I've done what I can for you, but you just couldn't get there. So you're a grown up now, you're 18, you're 19 years old, find something to do. This might be a blessing in disguise. Now, before I land the plane, because this is not going to be a very long video, but I just want to initiate a thought and say this. The A students, the B student, the C students. What I want us to reframe is the argument that grades matter, not exposure. And there is something that you hear people say in Africa a lot, is like you go apply for a job and everyone is asking for 5 years experience and you don't really have anything to show for it because you just spent the last 5-6 years studying and you're 27 years old and now the job market requires of you what you do not have, and what you have the job market is not ready to give or to reward as per se. There's the fallacy of grades being more superior than exposure, and that's what I want to push back against. It does not matter where you are, but the truth is the C and D student actually spend a bit more time in the real world. So by the time the A and B students have spent 3, 4, 5 years in school getting the higher education, maybe even going for a master's and for a PhD level, the C and D students have spent 5 years understanding what supply chain is, understanding how the real estate market works, understanding how cash flow works, understanding that you can buy A and sell here and make a profit. They're understanding skills that the real world rewards. The A and B students come out and they have something that I like to call an anchor. An anchor in the sense that they have a 5-year degree, a 6-year degree, a diploma, a master's, and they say, I did not just spend 5, 6, 7 years studying medicine for me to just go into business. What will my parents think? What was all that money for? I'm already in debt. And I feel like now we are getting into something that I like to call a very saturated point in our employment structure, whereby education is no longer rewarded because too many people have similar papers. So everyone is thinking, how do I stand out? So everyone is thinking, let me go for a master's, let me go for a PhD. I wish everyone that was doing this was not doing it out of the need for a promotion or to get a job. It was passion, it was purpose. But the truth of the matter is that a third of the people in that master's class, in that PhD class, are doing it because they want to get rewarded in the outside world, not understanding that the dynamics of the outside world do not reward education anymore because it is too saturated. So maybe what is getting rewarded more is exposure. Maybe it's you in your second year of studying engineering, understanding that exposure is equally, if not more important than grades, and spending your summers in your dad's business, in your mom's kiosk, in your uncle's garage, understanding real world dynamics that can actually give you options in case plan A doesn't work. Now, I'm not trying to push and say that an A student should now start failing all of a sudden so that they can get C grades, because it seems like the C students are ruling the world. And I'm not saying that a C student should not study, because why should I become an A student and A students actually work for C students? What I'm pushing back against is we need to divide our textbook and say there's education exposure and there's real world exposure, and exposure needs to be gotten in the real world. Let's seek to be more outgoing as young men and young women. Let's seek to be more adventurous. Let's seek to try out so many things in the real world, because what really matters when it comes to success is not grades anymore. It is how many reps do you have in the real world that can guarantee that you have some skills that are not taught in a classroom that actually make you stand out. This has been question and analysis. Think on it. Drop a comment. I'd like to hear your thoughts on this. But the future is changing, and the education system as it is misleading more people than we think.